Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotra Sataśrī Śrīmad Abhayacharana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotra Sataśrī Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Natikoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. All gloriously assembled devotees. All gloriously assembled devotees. All gloriously assembled devotees. All glorious to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we have a slightly unique situation this morning. We'll chant this verse together. And it's a very short purport, so I was asked to also read the following two, which are like two verses put together. So that one I'll read, this one we can chant together. We are reading from Canto 4 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 1, Text 25. Kṛpā-avalokena hasad vadanenopalambhitān tad-rociṣā pratihate nimīlya munir akṣiṇī kṛpā-avalokena hasad vadanenopalambhitān tad-rociṣā pratihate nimīlya munir akṣiṇī kṛpā-avalokena hasad vadanenopalambhitān tad-rociṣā pratihate nimīlya munir akṣiṇī. kṛpā-avalokena hasad kṛpā-avalokena hasad tad-rociṣā pratihate nimīlya munir akṣiṇī hasad vadanenopalambhitān tad-rociṣā pratihate kṛpā-avalokena hasad vadanenopalambhitān tad-rociṣā pratihate nimīlya munir akṣiṇī. Vaishnavis. kṛpā-avalokena hasad vadanenopalambhitān tad-rociṣā pratihate nimīlya munir akṣiṇī kṛpā-avalokena hasad vadanenopalambhitān tad-rociṣā pratihate nimīlya munir akṣiṇī. Kṛpā-avalokena, glancing with mercy. Hasat, smiling. Vadanena, with faces. Upalambhitān, appearing very much satisfied. Tat, there. Rociṣā, by the glaring effulgence. Pratihate, being dazzled. Nimīlya, closing. Muni, the sage. Akṣiṇī, his eyes. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Atri Muni was greatly pleased to see that the three devas were gracious towards him. His eyes were dazzled by the effulgence of their bodies, and therefore he closed his eyes for the time being. Purport. Since the deities were smiling, he could understand that they were pleased with him. Their glaring bodily effulgence was intolerable to his eyes, so he closed them for the time being. Now I'll read the next one by myself. Cetas tat-pravaṇaṁ yuñjann astāvīt saṁhatāñjaliḥ ślakṣṇayā sūktayā vācā sarvaloka-kariyasah Atri vācā vishvodbhavastitalayeshu vibhajyamanir maya gunir anuyagam vigritad deha te brahma vishnu girisha pranatosmyam smyaham vas tebhya ke eva bhavatamma iho bahutaha. Translation. But since his heart was already attracted by the deities, somehow or other he gathered his senses, and with folded hands and sweet words, he began to offer prayers to the predominating deities of the universe. The great sage Atri said, O Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva, you have divided yourself into three bodies by accepting the three modes of material nature, as you do in every millennium for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all of you, and beg to inquire whom of you three I have called by my prayer. Purport. Atri Rishi called for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Jagadishvara, the Lord of the universe. The Lord must exist before the creation, otherwise how could he be its Lord? If someone constructs a big building, this indicates that he must have existed before the building was constructed. Therefore, the Supreme Lord, the creator of the universe, must be transcendental to the material modes of nature. But it is known that Vishnu takes charge of the mode of goodness, Brahma takes charge of the mode of passion, and Lord Shiva takes charge of the mode of ignorance. Therefore, Atri Muni said that Jagadishvara, the Lord of the universe, must be one of you, but since three of you have appeared, I cannot recognize whom I have called. You are all so kind. Please let me know who is actually Jagadishvara, the Lord of the universe. In fact, Atri Rishi was doubtful about the constitutional position of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, but he was quite certain that the Lord of the universe cannot be one of the creatures created by Maya. His very inquiry about whom he had called indicates that he was in doubt about the constitutional position of the Lord. Therefore, he prayed to all three. Kindly let me know who is the transcendental Lord of the universe. He was certain, of course, that not all of them could be the Lord, but the Lord of the universe was one of the three. Om jnana-timirandasya jnanjana ślakṣṇayā chakṣur-unmilitam yena tasmai śrī-gurave namaha. Namo Vishnu-padaya Krishna-prishthaya bhutale Śrīmate Vaisheshikadasa-adhikariti namane Nama praharshashilaya Prabhupada-nusarane Anindita tade tasmai shastra-bhajana-charane. Nama Om Vishnu-padaya Krishna-prishthaya bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami-niti namane Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pastyatadeshatadine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kṛpā-avalokena Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. There is a lot you could say within these recent purports and verses, so I'll just try to speak something to my limited understanding. But here, as we've already described, Atri Muni has called upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was quite surprised when these three deities appeared before him, because actually he didn't really call for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He called for someone who was just like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore these three qualitative expansions of the Lord, or guna avatars, appeared. because in many ways they are just like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They have many features in which you could identify them as being supreme controllers of this universe, although we know there is only one. And Atri Muni also understood this. He intelligently came to the conclusion that the Lord must be transcendental to this material nature, not affected by the modes of nature, have existed prior to the creation, and that not a creation of Maya itself, and that it could only be one of them, that there can only be one source of creation, not three sources of creation and of reality. So he had to ultimately decide on one of these deities that presented itself before him. So we can address that first point, which Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, that the Lord must be pre-existent to his creation. Srila Prabhupada gives the example that if someone constructs a big building, it must be understood that the builder existed before the construction of the building. So although we understand that the Lord can enter into his creation, exist within his creation, perform pastimes in his creation, we also know that he is not a product of this creation, and that ultimately he's transcendental to it. This view is almost an exclusive one to our tradition. Many people don't believe God can enter his creation, or maybe he doesn't want to, but we believe God is unlimited, and so are his potencies and abilities. And therefore, he makes his creation for the conditioned living entities, but he also comes here and enters into it for the benefit of the devotees, and also to remove any influences which are stopping religious principles. So Krishna's appearance in this world, it shouldn't be considered material, because his appearance is different. His body, his mind, his entire being, his soul, they're one and the same. They're on the absolute platform. So he appears in his original Satchid Ananda Vigraha, his form of eternality, consciousness or knowledge, sentience, and ananda, bliss. So his appearance in this world, as we are celebrating the pastimes of Lord Damodar, God as a young child, as a baby, which may be bewildering to most people, but actually he doesn't appear in the same way. He appears like the sun rising over the horizon. The sun also sets. So the birth of the sun on the eastern horizon is not actually the birth of the sun. Anyone who has a little bit of intelligence understands that the sun pre-existed its birth upon the horizon. So that's the case for Krishna and Lord Vishnu. The same can't be said about everyone, though, especially material conditioned living entities in this world. We accept material bodies when we enter this world, and our bodies are different from us. We are not these bodies. These bodies are made up of the modes of material nature and material elements, whereas the soul is transcendental. And we're separate from it, and we are entangled in the material energy when we come in contact with it, and therefore we're stuck in the cycle of birth and death. Lord Brahma, he's in a different situation. We also see that he has a material body, although he's the oldest living entity in the universe, and he stays until the very end. And so the fact that Krishna, or Lord Narayan, is transcendental is amazingly even accepted by the head of the Mayavad school, Sripad Sankaracharya himself. He says, and Srila Prabhupada would always quote this, actually in the introduction to Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, in like the last two paragraphs, Srila Prabhupada is back-to-back quoting Shankaracharya's Gita Mahatmya, where Sankaracharya himself is glorifying the Bhagavad Gita, is glorifying Krishna, and even Shankaracharya says himself, Narayana Paro Vyaktat, that Lord Narayan is transcendental to the modes of material nature. So the other point that Atri Muni wanted to clarify, or that he was right in assuming, is that there could only be one supreme personality of Godhead, that only one of these deities could actually be the original person. Because everything must have a singular origin. It cannot have three origins. You see, everything has a cause. You can't point to anything that doesn't have a cause, a creator, something that has come before it. So the idea of the absolute truth, or God, is a pretty simple definition, that which everything comes from. That definition is given in the first verse of the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadhir Adhir Govindam Sarva-karana-karanam. That Krishna, or Govinda, he's the cause of all causes. He has an eternal, spiritual, blissful body, and that there is no other origin than him. And who's speaking this verse? Lord Brahma himself. So Lord Brahma even recognizes that Vishnu, or Govinda, Krishna, he is Sarva-karana-karanam. He is the cause of all causes. So although sometimes we do see Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva addressed as the Supreme Lord, we find this in a few instances in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures. What we don't see are Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma themselves, or what we do see is Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva addressing Lord Vishnu as the Supreme Lord. So these two deities that are being addressed as the Supreme, who do they call the Supreme Lord? They call Vishnu the Supreme. And nor do they address themselves as the Supreme. They never claim to be Supreme Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva. Where we see Krishna, he's doing that all the time. In the Bhagavad Gita, he's saying, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante imam buddha bhava samanvita. He's the source of all material and spiritual worlds. So if he's the source of spiritual worlds, it means he's also transcendent to this creation. And we also see another point that Krishna doesn't address other deities as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So with all these factors in mind, one can use the process of elimination and understand that actually Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just by the way he interacts with other sages, demigods, like that. So the answer to Atri Muni's confusion is that, yes, there can only be one Supreme Personality, but here's what makes that confusing, is that Krishna, or the Supreme Lord, he's not limited to one form. We see him all the time coming into the material universe, and he has innumerable forms. So this can definitely confuse a lot of people. And that's why we see generally in what's now called Hinduism or Hindu society, that people just label them as all the same, or a manifestation of Brahman, all the demigods, along with the avatars of Krishna. They don't understand that there are demigods, and then there are Krishna and his own expansions. And therefore it's crucial to be able to differentiate the difference between Krishna's expansions, Vishnu Tattva or Swamsa expansions, and Krishna's expansions which are not Vishnu Tattva, Jiva Tattva or Vibhinamsa, the eternally separated parts and parcels of the Lord. So such Vishnu expansions, or Vishnu Tattva, or like Varahadev, Vamandev, Nrsimha, Lord Ramchandra, Lord Balaram, like that. And so out of these three, Lord Brahma is, he's a part of the Vibhinamsa expansions. He is a jiva, he's a conditioned soul, believe it or not, like us. But the same can't be said about Lord Shiva, which is another kind of thing that throws a whole wrench in it. I could have gone through this explanation and kind of glossed over that and hope no one said anything about it, because this isn't my forte. You kind of need your own master's degree in Shiva Tattva to be able to speak about this. But the typical example is that Lord Shiva is if you had yogurt which touches acid, it then curdles and if you have milk which touches acid, it then curdles and becomes yogurt. So Lord Shiva is considered to be the yogurt of Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu is as if he had come in contact with the modes of nature and associated with them. This is the terminology we see Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta use in this regard, that he's associating with the modes of nature to perform certain activities, and therefore he becomes Lord Shiva. A few things to explain a little more. I recommend, if you want to learn more about Lord Shiva, a really good section that I found was in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 20, verses 307 through 312. There's a lot of nice information there. And Srila Prabhupada gives some nice purports. Some things I extracted from that, just to summarize it. Srila Prabhupada states that Rudra is simultaneously one with and different from Vishnu Tattva. Due to his association with Maya, he is different from the Vishnu Tattva. But at the same time, he is an expansion of Krishna's personal form. This situation is called Bheda Bheda Tattva, or Chinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, simultaneously one and different. So this is something we can understand that Gaudiya Vaishnavas are particularly adept at being able to understand, because we are equipped with the knowledge of a Chinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. Srila Prabhupada says in another section, to kind of settle the score, he says, the conclusion is that the incarnation of Lord Shiva, or Lord Brahma, indicates the absence of the supreme power of Vishnu. When the supreme power is not there, it is possible to associate with Maya, the external energy. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are to be considered creations of Maya. And there you go, that cancels out one of the criteria for Atri Muni. He knew that the Supreme Lord couldn't be a creation of Maya. And so Srila Prabhupada is explaining that because of Lord Shiva's association with the external energy, he doesn't exactly have the supreme power that Vishnu has. Again, it's a little inconceivable. Take it as you will. So although not exactly like Vishnu, but an expansion, Lord Shiva comes in a different mood. Again, Lord Shiva doesn't really like being addressed as the Supreme Lord. There's instances, I don't know if it's in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita or in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but he basically recoils in being called the Supreme Lord. So he comes in the mood of a devotee. We see that Shiva, he meditates on Lord Narayan. He chants the names of Lord Ram. He chants the names of Lord Narayan and of Krishna. There are many devotional poems that Lord Shiva has presented in this matter. And therefore, we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's stated, Vaishnavanam Yatashambhu, that Lord Shiva, he is the greatest Vaishnav. And so we can approach him and take shelter of him in this way. So real followers of Lord Shiva, they should be trying to assimilate this idea and understand that even followers of Lord Shiva should actually be followers of Lord Vishnu. So this knowledge of Vishnu's different expansions, the Vibhinamsa and Swamsa expansions, and how he has so many different incarnations, is not completely understood by everyone, especially, as I already mentioned, within the Hindu sect of society. It is not fully understood. What to speak of so-called scholars or theologians who claim to know something about Vedic culture. And therefore, it's typical that the Vedic paradigm is misrepresented as polytheistic, when in fact it's actually monotheistic. Couldn't be more monotheistic. I've heard someone describe it though as anthropomorphic, like monotheism or something, meaning that we believe in one God, although he can take innumerable forms. He's the same person. I think Radhakaraman Prabhu gave that term. Anthropomorphic, polymorphic, monotheism, that's what it was? Polymorphic monotheism. Yeah. It's a great term, whether people understand that or not. So we've probably all been in this situation where someone has misunderstood, our practice. Oh yeah, you guys are polytheistic, right? Especially if we come in contact with people from other faiths, other traditions. I get this all the time, especially if you're on book distribution. You meet someone maybe of the Christian faith, and they make so many assumptions, especially that we believe in so many different gods, that they're all the same. And then when you actually tell them that we are a monotheistic tradition, they're often really surprised. Doesn't create a change of heart or anything. They still refuse to accept Krishna as God. And even amongst themselves, they're fighting as to who is God. The Christian God, the Muslim God, the Jewish God, the Hindu God, whatever other gods are out there, when they don't even realize that, at least amongst the monotheistic traditions, they're actually addressing and following, to some lesser or greater degree, the same person. So we may find many innocent, seekers of the truth out there kind of caught in this mess, stuck in this battle, and they don't know what to do. They hear all these things from one party and this party, and they don't know where to go. Maybe they want to find God, but they think, oh, if I choose that scripture or this path, will I go to hell if I choose like just the wrong denomination? It's a pretty crazy idea. So a lot of people, they just get really fried out with the idea, and they don't want to approach God. They get discouraged. So what we like to do, for those who are not sure which scripture to follow, which God to follow, or even if there is a God, Krishna gives a very sound process, a science, if you will, on how to know him. Especially if one doesn't even know there is God. One devotee shared a great analogy with me. He was describing how astronomers, they had a theory about a certain kind of celestial body. They had never detected one, never seen one in a telescope or detected it through any other means. But they assumed, based on what they knew about the laws of physics, how the universe worked, how different stars were formed, and planets and solar systems, they thought theoretically there could be this kind of star, and we'll call it a brown dwarf, theoretically. It would look like this, it would have these qualities. And again, they never saw one. But they thought, okay, if this did exist, where would we find it if we theoretically know so much about it? And so what they did is they started to perform experiments to look for these brown dwarfs under the conditions that they hypothesized they would exist in. And lo and behold, they found these brown dwarfs. They had never seen them before, but hey, we detected a brown dwarf simply because we had a hypothesis, a theoretical structure of the potential existence of a brown dwarf. So similarly, we tell people, even if you don't know who God is, if you don't believe in God, it's worth experimenting. Here are the conditions of God. This is the definition of God. And since God is a person, in our case, there's not a mechanical means of understanding him, but there's a process of revelation. So if people want to understand God, we tell them, perform the experiment. And what's that experiment? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajata pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. That for those who are engaged in loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality, he gives them the understanding by which they can come to him. So this is our process. If God is a person, there's no mechanical means you can get to reach him. So many people say, show me God if there's really a God. But this attitude isn't going to work because God's a person. He's not pleased by such people with this this offensive and immature attitude. He only reveals himself to those who he favors, to those he shows mercy onto. So the process for stumbling onto God, you could say, is to try to please God. Try to perform some devotional service, starting with the chanting of the holy names. It's very simple. Anyone can do it. And actually, you can do it from any perspective. From any tradition in the world, God's names are absolutely unlimited. And Krishna also says, Yeyata mam prapadyante, tam sataiva bhajamyaham, mama vartamanu vartante, manushya partha sarvashaha. That according to one's application of surrender, devotional service, to that extent, he will proportionally be able to understand and realize God. So we're not asking anyone to do anything crazy at first, but take a little prasadam, chant Hare Krishna. And again, for those who are inimical or very envious of God, Krishna says, Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha mudho yo nabijanati lokam mam ajam avyayam. That to the foolish and unintelligent, I cover them with my yogamaya potency. And therefore, they do not understand that I am unborn and infallible. So they can't understand these truths unless they sincerely try to perform the experiment. So the Krishna consciousness movement is encouraging people who are doubtful who is God or the existence of God to perform the Hare Krishna experiment. Actually put some skin in the game. You don't want to be stuck as armchair philosophers or your philosophy doesn't mean squat. It doesn't mean anything if it doesn't have a practical application in the world, because that's not the scientific method. The scientific method is you have a hypothesis, which is, being in your armchair, but then you have an experiment, and finally you observe the results. And beyond that, you can also share your results with other practitioners, with other scientists, and that could fortify your results and your understanding of them. And it's also important to understand for new people, when we encourage them, that actually the odds are in their favor. There's the famous Pascal's wager. Pascal, he was a mathematician and a physicist, but he was also Catholic. He was a famous Catholic writer. And the idea goes that if one doesn't believe in God and he doesn't exist, no loss. If one doesn't believe in God and he does exist, very, very big loss. Very, very big loss. Now, if one does believe in God and he doesn't exist, again, no loss. But if one does believe in God and he does exist, eternal gain. So if one is a betting man, then they would know exactly where to put their money. And now this isn't necessarily a philosophical conclusion for advanced devotees. This isn't our impetus for practicing devotional service, because even this, Pascal's wager, it, has some flaws. We have better reasons to be in the pursuit of finding God. But at least for the neophyte, someone who is curious on, should I even endeavor onto the spiritual path to understand who is God? Is there a God? It's a pretty good logical impetus. So we're trying, therefore, to induce the whole world to chant Hare Krishna, because in one sense, chanting Hare Krishna is an even better praman. It's even the highest praman in one way. There's one pastime to go along with this. Srila Prabhupada, he was giving class somewhere, and at the end of the class, he had asked everyone, how do you know Krishna is God? He asked his disciples, and they said, well, Prabhupada, you tell us Krishna is God. We have faith in you. We love you. Prabhupada said, forget me. I'm just some old man. What position am I in? Forget all that. How do you know Krishna is God? Another person raised their hand. They said, well, Prabhupada, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Prabhupada said, no. Bhagavad Gita, just some old book. Forget about who, someone could just say oh, that's your book. I have this book. What's the real authenticity? Another devotee raised his hand. He said, well, Prabhupada, when I chant his holy names, I can feel him. And Prabhupada said, yes, this is why we know Krishna is God. So ultimately, whether you're a neophyte just trying to understand God, or whether you've been practicing for a long time, this chanting of Hare Krishna, it is our bedrock. It is everything. It helps us come close to God. It reveals Krishna, his form, his qualities, and his pastimes. And so we can all invest more time and energy into sharing the holy names and going deeper into them ourselves. I will conclude on that point. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And Brigapati Prabhu can go straight into it. I know he has some gotcha moment. Okay. Thank you again for your attention.
No, thank you. It was a very nice class, and you explained everything very correctly. Just out of curiosity, so you did 25, 26, 20, up to 28. Did you read ahead in the chapter at all?
No.
Okay, because the Bhagavatam is throwing us a curveball.
Okay.
I was trying to make that point yesterday.
Okay.
This is text 30. It says, I'll read 29 too. It says, the great sage Maitreya continued, upon hearing Atri Muni speak in that way, the three great deities smiled, and they replied in the following sweet words. And, meaning speaking, he's asking the question, which one of you is the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Yeah.
So you made the point that, well, it's Vishnu, and that's correct. That's the standard, that's the first week in Krishna consciousness, every bhakta knows that, of the three guna avatars, Vishnu is transcendental. That's the standard understanding. But listen to what they said. The three deities told Atri Muni, dear Brahmana, you are perfect in your determination, and therefore, as you have decided, so it will happen. It will not happen otherwise. Interesting how they're speaking. We are all the same person upon whom you were meditating, and therefore we all have come to you. See, so they're not saying, they could have just said right then and there that, okay, well, since you're asking directly, it's Vishnu, and I'm sort of second as Lord Shiva and I'm sort of third. No, but they said we're all the same person. And Prabhupada in the purport to that verse, he goes on and explains how there's a sense in which, Mahavishnu is the supreme, and then there's a sense in which I tried to kind of go over this in class yesterday. Garbhadakshay Vishnu is the supreme, and there's a sense in which Ksira-cora-gopinatha Vishnu is the supreme, is the super soul. And then he goes on in the next paragraph and he says, Vishnu is he maintains the entire universe, so it could be said that he's the supreme, but Brahma, he creates the different planetary systems and the populations, so he can be considered the supreme. And he goes to Lord Shiva, who is ultimately the destroyer of the universe, he may also be considered its Lord. Therefore, since Atri Muni did not specifically mention who he wanted, all three, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, came before him. And they said, since you were thinking of having a son exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of the universe, I think that's significant there, that, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has different roles. And one role is Yasodanandana, that give pleasure to Mother. But one role is the Lord of the universe. So he was praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his role as
Jagadishvara.
Yes, Jagadishvara. So therefore, all three of them. As it goes on to say, the Lord of the universe, your determination will be fulfilled. In other words, one's determination is fulfilled according to the strength of one's devotion. So that's why I came up with that thing. It's a pastime. This is a pastime. They were responding to Atri Muni's
It was a little
devotion.
Sarcastic in a way.
Huh?
It's a little kind of like tongue-in-cheek,
Right, that's what I think.
He was being too vague. He just
As
asked
you
for
have
the
decided, so it will happen. It will not happen otherwise.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they're not just giving them a direct, straightforward answer.
Yeah.
That's my. I discussed this with Druta Karma, and in the absence of a statement from an acharya, is an acharya in the house, by the way? No. In the absence of a statement from an acharya supporting that, it's just my theory, because Prabhupada is not directly saying it in the purport, and there's no acharya. I haven't read the commentaries by acharyas on this section of the Bhagavatam, so I don't know. But definitely it's a curveball, and definitely it's not, just saying, Vishnu is the supreme. So I thought that was interesting.
I think that's the main point, though, is that it's a little tongue-in-cheek that they're recognizing the vagueness of his question, and it goes into the idea of yeyetam mam prapadyante, that to the extent one is specific, Krishna reciprocates accordingly. So many people have a very vague conception of God, and that's what they get. But the more specific you are, the more Krishna is able to reveal himself to you. But of course, they are also, they have the title of Guna Avatar, so they are a kind of avatar that is there. And Shiva, again, he's not Vishnu Tattva, he's not Jiva Tattva, he has his own Tattva altogether. So there's lots of nuances here. I would imagine that the commentary from the previous acharyas in this section is probably elaborate. If anyone has on Veda base, the previous acharyas, I'd imagine there would be a lot that they'd have to say. But again, I do recommend, if anyone wants more clarification on this point, this section I mentioned, Chaitanya Charitamrita, is really great. It answers a lot of this. And then also in Brahma Samhita, in I think it was text 45, it talks about this point, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives a lot of nice clarification in this regard. Any other comments or questions or corrections? Shamarai Prabhu. And then we have to, probably the last one, because I think we're going to do some puja for Radha.
Thank you, excellent presentation. Just wondering, how many different Lord Shivas there are, or how many different types of Lord Shivas there are, and are any or all of them posts that can be filled by Jivas or living entities?
As far as I understand, no. As far as I understand, Lord Shiva, as I mentioned, is his own tattva. It's not a post. It's eternally the same person. And also, I think Lord Shiva has different, forms in this world, but it's the same. It's the same person, which is Krishna associating, not necessarily controlled by, but associating with the modes of material nature, otherwise known as Maya Devi or Parvati. So that's what I know about that. maybe he wants to.
I heard in previous classes that there's Sadashiva, there's 11 Rudras, there's...
Yeah. There are different like forms that Shiva takes in this world, but they're all him, right? That's what I would. Okay. Some of that. Oh well then I'm disqualified from this question, Prabhu. But thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.